Remember when I said we were going to do level design? Let's do level design. I still don't really have many ideas as to what we're going to do, but there's two major areas that we need to fix up, or at least continue on progress with. The first one of which is, I'll just go back to the start of the dungeon. We come through here, we walk through here. I actually decided to get rid of the idea of having a like locked door here, and that is mostly because I want to get rid of some of the linearity of this, I think. Because otherwise, like, if you can't go through this direction, the entire dungeon does become a pretty linear path. Because you would go, like, through here, and then the only split would be all the way over here. And you need to get over here anyway because of the combat trial, right? And then going through here, and then you just have another split path. And I don't know, given the option of going either left or right at the start, if we just look at it from like a bird's eye view, having the option to go either this direction or that direction is probably a good thing. The only thing that might change that is going through this more linearly, going from like this to this big room, and then potentially going here first might be better, because that way you go through the combat trial and then the platforming trial, and then the like mini game puzzle or whatever thing will be up here. And what you don't want to end up having happen is somebody going through here, going through all that, getting the key here, and then needing to backtrack back and forth. Maybe. But also maybe it's not that big a deal because there's going to be another dungeon like right next to it. So if you don't feel like going back right away, you can just go explore the next dungeon before coming back here and actually like beating the boss when it feels a little bit more novel again. And I think creating that like loop probably works better than creating linearity with a unlockable path back. Because in the end, you can just go into the purple dungeon and enter through here, because we have this door over here comes in from the purple dungeon, which does come through like a optional path, and it's a little bit of like a roundabout way to get here, which might actually be a reason to lock it off now that I think about it. I'm not entirely decided yet, but the way that you would get there is to go through like the top part of the maze, and the way that you get to the top part of the maze is to go out of your way to ignore this door and do a little bit of like platforming here and go through here, which is already at like the back half of this dungeon. So it's a little bit like out of your way to enter through there, but you can do that, right? In which case, the linearity of this dungeon also falls apart. So maybe it's okay to just do that. And as a matter of fact, if I just allow you to go through to the left side here from the start, then this also becomes an entry to the purple dungeon. All these doors work in two ways, right? Just because I'm making the purple dungeon first and then making the red dungeon doesn't mean that the player will play them in that order. You can play these in any order you want. That's like part of the whole like concept of the game. So if you go through here, you suddenly end up at like the back end almost of the purple dungeon without actually having to do much for it, because you can effectively like skip. If we go like purple dungeon, where does it start? It starts somewhere, surely. One moment. So it starts here, right, with a split path going either left or right, and then both of those paths end up crossing at this place, which is the like central room where you have the combat trial. You can get to that very easily from entering this room which you enter from here, right? Because you enter there and then you come through here. And then you can pretty much use the tops of these walls to just get to the end of the maze without too much trouble. And then you are in the actual combat trial. You've effectively skipped the first part of like the purple dungeon as a whole. Or alternatively, what you can do is you can go through like this door, at which point you're almost immediately within the platforming trial of the purple dungeon, which gets you one of the 3 keys that you need. At which point you can go back and you can like backtrack to the combat thing as well. And you've more or less skipped like the introductory portion of this dungeon. So the more I'm like talking about this and explaining this, mostly to myself, to be honest, the more I'm thinking that, yeah, just keeping things more open is probably a good thing. So the idea of having this door be like locked and needing to be unlocked from the other side before you can use it or whatever, I think it'll be good to like not do that. So all that out of the way. Let's actually do some level blockouts. We have 2 things that we can do. We have this path, which like you end up through here, and I just made some like simple hallways that lead from like a raising platform to a raising platform to a raising platform to a raising platform to all the way up here. Of course, there needs to be something in all of these areas because nothing actually happens there. So there needs to be like a little bit of platforming, a little bit of combat, maybe a little bit of puzzle solving at some point, I don't know. And some of these might be extended from like these linear hallways to like being a little bit more involved, because this essentially is one room that replaces a half a dungeon. So it's going to be a big room. Going through this is going to be like quite the ordeal. And the whole like idea of this is that this is kind of like that backstage area, right? So there's going to be like pipes running all over the place. There might be like some equipment lying around, that kind of stuff. So we can make use of that. Alternatively, we could do this like main platforming challenge, where the goal is actually to platform all the way up, and halfway through you will get the door that leads into like this area, but it'll go up like much higher, and that's where you get the key for the platform. Which also is going to be a lot of work. So either way, there's going to be a lot of work that we need to do, and I think it makes sense to just do this linearly. So to start with expanding on this, maybe. So yeah, let's start with that, I think. Welcome, hello, everybody joining in. Hopefully everybody's having a fantastic day as I try to figure out what the hell I'm going to do with my life. Yeah, so first and foremost, let's make this, I think we can make this a fairly like linear, just kind of giving you the vibes of this area. So there's going to be like a couple of pipes, which I think we have like a, what did I call that? I have a blueprint that does something similar to what I want. It's this one. You know, mesh over spline, it's a good name. Because it can be used for more than just pipe. I probably should have. Yep. Mesh over mesh over spline. It's just in content. Okay. And this one we call it a pipe, right? Maybe. Let's just. That's the wrong direction, man. I guess we do use the one that we have already been using, because that is at least the right direction. Correct? It is. So yeah, the wonderful thing about this is that we can kind of just like pull out these. Ooh, it's a little twisty. That's not great, but that's because something weird's going on. I don't know what's happening with all this. But it's not good. Yeah, so these 90-degree turns, I did fix this at some point in a different blueprint, I believe. Because people did have this issue in the tutorial that I made of it. I would just, like, specifically 90-degree turns it doesn't like. Well, I can just not use 90-degree turns and not fix this for, like, my own purposes. So this is kind of just, like, mostly going to be like, art stuff. So not stuff that I do right now necessarily. But as a like general vibe, this is kind of the thing that's gonna like go on here, I think. Like having pipes that go a little all over the place and throw each other and just kind of do this. I will do it with a different type of pipe because this one doesn't necessarily make sense to do it with. But then just copy over the whole actor. Oh no, I'm copying spline points. No, 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 no. I don't want to do that. I already messed up. Yeah, so we can just do. Why is there just a empty segment over there? Yeah, definitely. Whatever we end up using for like the meshes for these pipes need to be much higher resolution because these are they're not quite it, are they? But kind of this as an ID. So you come up here and you're like, oh, this is like a not supposed to be here type of area, right? So I think it's this. Does this one also have one of those? No. What is the game about? In a gameplay sense, it's a hack and slash action RPG. In a story sense, it's a much longer answer. There's not much direct like storytelling either. So most of that is like implied environmental storytelling, which I like because that means that I don't have to like animate scenes and like hire voice actors. Well, I guess you can just like have written words as well if you really want to. But then still you need to like write a script for all that. Oh, this is the fucker. There we go. I don't want to do that either. So there's no direct like storyline or anything. Whatever I'm doing right now actually like straight up does not really matter. But this gives a good impression, I would say. So that's the first bit here. Nothing like gameplay wise going on, I don't think. Can just kind of copy one more of these over maybe. And move it somewhere. um, maybe it's actually not that bad enough an idea to just have it be like these same pipes that you see in the central hub area. Could actually like imply some stuff. Yeah, so this is the first area that you would get to. So do I have, I don't think I have any like effective save files anymore, right? Did I delete those? I did. But it should be relatively quick to murder the boss fight here. So I can make a save file to get to the place I need to be. Let's do that real quick. Let's also lower the volume on this shit, because it's kind of loud. Yeah, you can hit me, I know. Oh yeah, I can't dash through anymore. Do we have any spells? I don't. Okay. It's a pretty easy fight because sometimes he just kind of sits the fuck down. When he sits down, he really should recover some defense, shouldn't he? Because otherwise, like, this can happen, and it will happen. So, yeah. Also, something about this this cutscene messed up. All the shots that are supposed to show the player character just do this now, and I don't know what happened. There's also other things that seem to be like moving for no good reason. I don't know what's up with this scene. I need to like look at that at some point. Not my main concern right this moment, though. Right this moment, my main concern is making a save file that I can use. Which door is it? It's this one because it's got red lighting on it, even though it's turned off. I put an invisible wall there. I'll get rid of the invisible wall. The next time I push any like updates, I'm probably gonna have this dungeon finished-ish anyway. So it's probably fine, and then we can like turn on the red light again as well. And now I can just load my save file from there, which loads me in next to a random door. I still don't know why it does that, but it does do that for reasons. I don't know. Anyway, I see red. Yeah, so apparently I just gave this one a joke name. I don't remember doing that. But everything is going to be I see red, the church, for now. Which is, did I give names to the purple dungeon? Don't think I did. Did I? Not yet. Okay. It's going to be a lot of title cards that I need to make for this game, because it's going to be like, I don't know how many there's going to be. It's going to be a lot. Yeah, so this is the way up. You just jump onto this, write it up, and then it's kind of like, how does this feel? This feels kind of like stuff's going on, right? Maybe there should be one that you jump over, just to give you something to do. It's kind of shallow, but I think kind of shallow is fine sometimes. And I think today is one of those times. So let's... You know what? Actually, what we can do is we can just delete all these and make this a whole bunch easier to deal with. Yeah, that's better. Okay. Oh, we're back having this bullshit happen again. Yeah, so my internet just dropped. I'm guessing somebody on my Wi-Fi network is flicks up some bullshit using up all the bandwidth. Really fucking hate having a shared network, but there's not much I can do about it. So here we are. somewhat reasonable. And no data. No data at all. Yeah, we're back. No, we're not. Yeah, we are kind of, maybe a little. Look, man, I like doing live streams, but I don't like dealing with this shit. Like, I legitimately, if I could find any place to live because there's a housing crisis, I would move just to prevent me from having to deal with this shit at this point, because this happens way too often. And usually it's annoying because, like, for everything to do with my job, I rely on the internet because I work remote. But then when I live stream, it needs to not only be fast, it also needs to be stable. And it's not. Anyway, enough of me bitching. Let's just assume that the internet is back up. And we're good to go. And if it's not, we'll figure it out. Man, these things need more vertices. It needs much fucking higher resolution. Because these are like really janky right now. But this will give people something to do, surely. I hate that it opens that on my main monitor. Okay, so the warning is gone now. So if it happens again, I know what the issue is. Even if you don't have to like platform over them, just having to like maneuver between them, I think is going to be nice. And this is also a good representation of the code in this project. It's all over the place, twisting through each other and spaghettiing to no extent. So these all should be in the proper streaming level though, because right now they are not. And that streaming level, I think, is 212. So let's move them to 212. It's right here. And let's try again what it looks like walking through that. Again, it doesn't need to be like a super massive challenge or anything. It just needs to be something that's a bit more engaging than walking forward. Because by the time you've gotten there, you've walked forward through this room. You've made a kind of a choice in this room, which involved you walking forward in a chosen direction. And then you've walked forward over here as well. Like, there's nothing that happened for the last like 2 minutes. And when there's art in place, that might be a little bit better, but I think it's good to... Oh, you can just like literally still walk under the right? So I think it's good to make this one go like actually effectively over the floor. So you actually have to jump over it a little. Or squeeze under here. And this one I think also should be... Hello? There's a pointer in there? No, there's not. Okay. Fuck you, there is now. This one I think also should be pretty much like on the floor. So even if you squeeze under this, you're then going to like need to walk to the side a little bit. I think this is good enough for this first area. So then we get to this area, which we're probably going to add a couple of twists and turns into. getting to this area, which will be the last. So we effectively have 3 areas. The introductory area. Then we probably want an area with some gameplay mechanic. And then the 3rd area should expand on that gameplay mechanic. At least like that's how it would be linearly, but you can also enter this from the other direction, I suppose. You could, but there's no real use in doing that. So at that point, it's just like a backtracking area, effectively. So I think what we do is we make this still linear, as in, well, it's all going to be linear, but just like a straight line. And then this area, I think, is going to have like more of a U shape, so that like a little something more happens. I just don't know what I'm going to do with this for like platforming or like whatever kind of mechanics. I guess we can just put in some enemies, but I don't want to just have the answer to every like level design challenge be throw in some enemies. But I also don't want the game to end up without any enemies. So it's kind of like, what do I do? I guess, I don't know. We can like put in, yeah, but not too many of these here because like lore reasons, right? And specifically within like this church area, that's important. I feel like we should do something platforming related here. So maybe instead of making this like one, like there's 2 big hallways, maybe we should make this one big area in which you jump from like pipe to pipe. That seems like maybe not a bad idea. So yeah, let's get rid of this. For now. It's a lot of individual blocks in here. But if we just make this one like slightly bigger room, which still kind of work up to like this little chimney area or whatever it is. This should snap every 100 units just so that keep everything consistent. We can still like do something with this. It'll feel a lot more empty because it will be a lot more empty. Well, we're now giving the player more space, right? Because before what we had was like one hallway this way and one hallway that way. We were effectively creating a whole new space, like the size of this square, up to like at least this height, so that cube. But I think it's going to be needed because the content like that we had wasn't that much. I also don't know. How this is going to make sense from like a what's the word I'm looking for? Not like architectural perspective, I guess. think this also just needs to be higher up a little bit. So we do a little bit more platforming from like place to place, walking over some pipes and that kind of stuff. And then this, I guess this is like 1,000 units maybe. That's 1,000. That's 2,000 units. So this is the place that we're gonna like work toward. And the distance travel for this guy is gonna be 2,000 less. So it's gonna be 4,000. And well, the speed for it and everything we'll care about a little later. That's actually the perfect distance. Wow. Maybe not quite. New member during stream. That's, I think, the first time. Welcome. I do wonder if it notifies me of that channel light or if that happened on this stream. Usually people become members just to get the project files or of tutorials. But if it's just to support me, thank you even more. It is definitely right here. Okay, I have no idea how YouTube works. Despite me doing this like way too many hours a week, I have no idea how this website works. Which is kind of bad. But yeah, thanks. I want to learn your ways. I mean, just do stuff and then fail at them. And then pretend like you didn't fail. And then accept that you did fail. And then do them again. That's my way. Well, that's overly reductive, but also not entirely untrue. Like the fact that these don't line up. What the it's just a blockout. It's okay. What the hell is going on with like literally any of this? We'll need to eventually replace it with proper like art assets anyway. So for now, let's just live with the fact that there's going to be like gaps in this stuff. I just realized that this also doesn't work that way because this does need to actually be lower. So let's lower this by like, I don't know, 500 units? Nope. That's definitely lowered by 1,000. And then increase this by 1,000 again as well. Yes, I fill out stuff you don't even fill out, so I think it's worse. I mean, the other way to look at that, which is slightly more optimistic, is that you're failing at stuff that I already failed at. And I'm just failing at new stuff. But hopefully, by sharing what I'm failing at, other people can fail at it less. That's kind of like the mission statement, I guess. Well, mission statement is like making a game and showing every bit of the process, which inevitably also includes a lot of failure and a lot of like being bad at stuff and sharing how to be better at that stuff. Yeah, let's do another 300 units. Feels pretty good. So yeah, that's how we get up there, I guess. This probably should be done by a trigger, right? Not just by moving up and down constantly. We'll worry about that later. For now, we need to make some platforming happen here, which I have no idea what we're going to do for that. But what I do know is that it's all going to be based on tubes. Because we're on the YouTubes. Wow, that's a terrible joke. Block out tubes, sections, let's say 32. and the radius is going to be like a fair bit bigger. And now what the hell even is this orientation? It's a bit better. So I don't really have a good way to like angle these. So they're just going to intersect and we're going to have to deal with that. Everybody fine with that? Good. Oh, that's less than ideal. Let's make sure that this snaps to like 90-degree intervals. Set this back up to like 45. I wish I could set it to snap in only certain like axes. That would be ideal. Guess there might be a way to do that. But I also don't want to like program that because that seemed like a lot of work. Data science, machine learning engineer, so I'm actually a bit too far away from making games and such. Yeah, but at least like you have a background in like some sort of like software, right? Which would help. And it's also just fun to tinker around with stuff. You're like 100% correct. So you don't have to be like the best at something to enjoy doing it. So yeah, what I'm thinking for these is that you can like walk over these and they'll probably like get a box collider or something because, well, maybe not. Maybe we can make these jumps in and of themselves. How about that? Is that fun? That might be fun. Wait, how did I move? What the? Okay, never mind. For some reason, that was a little bit in a weird direction. So yeah, these aren't easy jumps to make, but at least they're like jumps, right? So they're going to be like slightly more engaging. And then for the sake of this making like some amount of sense when I'm actually doing the art assets for it, which is going to be like fucking 10 years from now at the pace that I'm going, but let's ignore that for the time being. We just like put these here so that these are going to be like bends, right? And I also, very OCD, want all of these to be red. Or black. Black is actually a nice color. But I need them to be red. Well, I don't need them to be red. I want them to be red. So yeah, this is good enough for like the block out. Again, I'm probably gonna just make specific assets for this. This is not gonna be like a copy paste kind of thing, especially since it's got like gameplay elements. So it's probably going to just be an asset that I duplicate 4 times here. So that's fine. And then the idea I had is to have this, because these are tubes, what we can do maybe is make one with a much bigger radius that we can walk on the inside of. Is the thing that I was like imagining. I don't know if that necessarily makes a lot of sense. It probably wants a little bit more thickness, I would guess. Thickness on the outside it is. I just don't know how we're gonna like, get into that. Sometimes in games, they put these jumps too close to each other, where you feel like you have to keep pressing on S. Yeah, I will say though that the like in-air control for this character is fairly high. So the moment you stop pressing the forward button, you stop moving forward. Like it's very responsive. It carries very little momentum after you release the button. Because like it's not a platform, right? So I don't want to like have a bunch of like platforming mechanics. I want to have platforming level design, but not necessarily like deep platforming mechanics. So it's just when you decide you want to stop moving, you just stop pressing a direction, and you'll effectively just like drop like a brick. So hopefully that kind of helps to prevent like that exact issue, because that does happen like a lot, specifically on like Mario 64 where you're like slippery as hell, as an example. So yeah, we could do something where I think this could be fun. Right? We do something, well, without this one, actually. Something like this. And then the height can be significantly lower. Now, actually, better idea is we do that from this side. And that's what we're working toward. Yes. That's some tight-ass platforming there, right? Hopefully. Okay, maybe this needs a little bit more distance. And then these come from the ceiling is the idea, right? So we... something like this, which will also kind of prevent you from trying to cheese this too much. I just need a way now to get up into this pipe, because I kind of like the idea that you like platform here and then like do a couple of little jumps, and then maybe that's a little too high still. I think that's too high to make for my character. But hey, we can just select all these and move them down a little. Can't move the big pipe down too much, of course. But this should be fine. And that might make this doable. I think that makes that doable. We'll see. Otherwise, I might just have to make that like hangable. Do you use nanites? Some places I do, I think. Do I have any nanite meshes? I try to not when I don't need to, but I might have some nanite meshes still. Let's see. Well, and here I don't have nanite, obviously. I think, well, this is a subject for replacement. I think, yeah, this thing over here is a nanite mesh because it uses nanite displacement to like displace those bricks to get like a lot more detail, but I don't really like the way it looks necessarily, so I'm probably gonna get rid of that. But if there's any places that I use nanite, it is effectively for the tessellation method that it has now, because that is actually kind of really cool. And I also think that this asset is nanites because I had like a bunch of them instanced at one point, even though it's a relatively low poly thing. Yeah, this one has nanite enabled, but it doesn't really need to anymore. And it doesn't, for the amount of like polygons that most of my things have, I think nanite, I haven't tested it, but I think nanite adds more overhead than it actually like saves me in performance, because I don't have like anything that is millions of polygons. The like highest detail things that I have are things like this skeletal mesh, which is off the top of my head like 120,000 tries or something like that. Can I see it anywhere? Should display it here, right? Anyway, if we just go wireframe, like it's a pretty like dense wireframe. But nanite skeletal meshes, when I tried it, didn't really seem to make a difference on that. Maybe it makes a difference with like a lot instances of characters. I need to test that still, because if anything, I might end up using nanite for skeletal meshes, because most of my skeletal meshes are within that like 50 to 100,000 poly range, which for some of them is just way too high. So those might end up benefiting from it. But aside from that, like pretty much nothing uses nanite. Yet. Maybe once I start doing some more art, I might get more in the mood of like, just slap nanite on it and see how it works. But for the time being, pretty much all non-nanite. I also moved away from Lumen, so that's like instantly like doubled my FPS. At the cost of some few dynamic lighting things. But I think that's worth it. So yeah, let's make this thing a little bit longer. Also move it in a little bit more. Yeah, that jump should be makeable now. So then now, how do I get up to there is the question. Do you think it is possible to make a game that would run on 50, 60 FPS using only using nanite? I mean, there's no real answer to that question, because like nanite is just a fairly expensive but easy alternative to like LOD meshes for very high poly meshes. If you're making like a hyper realistic looking game where every mesh on your screen has polygons in the hundreds of thousands to millions, you want to nanite all of that. It's probably still going to perform better if you hand make LOD meshes for every single one of those, or at least generate them, but it's going to look a little bit less good. So nanite isn't necessarily about like saving performance. It's about saving like work and like slightly improving visuals. But nanite also isn't the thing that's going to kill your FPS unless you're not running from a solid state. Like if you're running from a hard drive because it's streaming in the geometry, that's going to kill your FPS. Or at least significantly make like pop-in worse. The thing that's going to kill your FPS is having like a bunch of high resolution textures, because you're using so many high resolution like models. You have high resolution textures to go with that. Having like a bunch of complicated light interactions with those things. So especially if you're like combining global illumination in real time with super high poly meshes, that nanite by itself isn't going to kill your FPS. So it's like very context dependent. Completely random. What spec system are you designing this on? This is, I have a AMD 5950X with 128 gigs of RAM and a RTX 4090 that I'm running this on. I am aware that that's powerful. So when I'm testing this stuff, I don't test it on my PC. I legitimately got a Steam Deck to have a reasonable like milestoning or like benchmarking tool effectively. So I test all the like performance stuff on my Steam Deck, and I ask people on like my Discord server to test it as well. Not good at walking and typing at the same time. Me neither. Try to not get hit by a car or something, because that tends to happen when you are walking and typing at the same time. Dangerous. Anyway, back to my question at hand is, how the hell are we going to get up into this big pipe? Because we have like a lot of empty room here. I guess we can just put in a couple of enemies here to spice things up if we wanted to. But essentially, I think what we need to do is kind of just like take this. Turn it around. And kind of just like do this, right? Like let's make it too wide. And maybe every time we go a step up, we also go a little bit more out. Which means that we're definitely going to need to start closer to the wall because this is going to be clipping into the other thing otherwise. But I think this kind of like fills up the space quite nicely. Which is definitely like part of the goal here. So I don't want this to feel too empty. But yeah, nanite is nice, but it's also not something to just slap onto anything at any time. Just like any tool. It's a matter of, does it fit here? For which you need to like evaluate what its actual like use is. And what it's good at and what it's not good at. That's not great. Well, it's actually not that big a deal. So now I need to select all of these and move them over, which I don't have a lot of room to do that. But we can put like a hidden item under these for anybody like clever enough to go check that out, I think. Oh, no, 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 don't do that. Well, actually, I think it's pretty good if this ends up just like doing this. That kind of works. And then maybe, well, making a wall there actually doesn't make sense. I was going to say, maybe we can just make a wall here so that you need to walk through this to get there, but that doesn't really make sense. I mean, I think both angles on nanite have some merit to them. Just throwing nanite onto everything, expecting it to improve your FPS, isn't going to work, and is actually going to make things worse in a lot of scenarios. Because they aren't really a replacement for LODs in a lot of scenarios. Like, again, if we're taking what I have here, like I don't have a lot of places with my own art assets at the moment. But if we just like stick with skeletal meshes, because for the most part these skeletal meshes are art assets that I have. So we take this dude, right? I think he has like 3 or 4 LODs. If I remember correctly. Which are automatically generated. Yeah, so we have LOD 0, which is his full thing, where he has 33,000 triangles, roughly. And then we have some generated LOD. So this is LOD 1, which he gets at a certain distance, which only has 8,000 tries, 4,000, 2,000, and at some point he goes like fully PS1, just about 1,000 tries. You can auto-generate these. And like in this range, where I have like 30,000, 50,000 tries on these skeletal meshes, even if these are static meshes, having some auto-generated LODs is going to perform better than nanite. That said, that's because like when you get to a distance, it doesn't really matter, and these are like singular assets. When you have these like Quixel Megascan things, for instance, these like giant rocks that you can be standing on top of, where you need the area really close to your camera to be high in detail, but the same asset further away can be lower in detail because it's just so large in the world. That kind of thing, and we're talking about like close to you, you can like have like a million polygons. That is where normal LODs don't offer you functionality like nanite does. So for those kind of things, nanite is really quite cool, but it does come with a performance impact, and that's kind of the thing. Just like so many things in online Discord, like I had like 4 videos talking about the different like angles on casting because people also like buried a lot of stuff about that makes no sense. It's kind of a response, right? People misuse nanites, which causes other people to go like, hey, that's maybe not a great idea, which evolves into nanite is actually like the devil's work and it's bad and you should always avoid it. And that's also not true. Because it is amazing technology. It's just amazing technology that most people probably like don't actually need. Because you're probably not making, especially as like an indie, you're probably not actually making assets that can properly make use of it. Does the thing in the description not work? I can just post a new one. Let's see. Create channel, no. Invite people. It's just a people thing. Invite link. Create new link. Copy. Hidden use copy button. Yeah, that doesn't work. Because I'm in streamer mode, I think. Maybe. Let's try again. Okay, I guess we just turn off streamer mode real quick. Which is fine. Let's see if that link works. Yeah, so anything like low poly doesn't need it. But even if you like, if you look at something and you're like, oh, this is like fairly high poly as a whole scene, it might still not make a lot of sense if you have like low to mid range poly counts on individual assets to all throw nanite on those. From what I understand, which is admittedly not super deep, it specifically helps when you have high poly meshes. So not when you're seen as high poly, because you can just have a lot of meshes on screen that individually have like about like 5 to 10k polys, and that can still make millions of polys in your scene. But with that, you kind of just have to stick with LODs as far as I understand. It specifically is good when singular assets have a fuck ton of polygons. And that's kind of where the usefulness for it ends, to my understanding. Yeah, that might be a way of Discord to go fuck yourself, because this that's weird, because it's set to never expire and have no limited to the amount of users that I can with it, and it's the same link if I like refresh that. So that might be a Discord bug. I can try to just generate a new one that's going to be like valid for 7 days. See if that makes it any different. Which might have invalidated all the links in all my descriptions now that I think about it, so hopefully that's not the case. Probably not, right? Surely not. Let me know if that one works. Well, actually, I'll see it just because the welcome message. So yeah, that's still doesn't work. Yeah, so that seems to be an issue on Discord's end, then I guess. So 100 assets with 200k plus tries on screen are better with nanite than with LODs. Probably. I don't really know where the cutoff is because I haven't done that testing. But by and large, you can assume that the performance of LODs is almost always going to perform better. The issue, again, the big exception is in performance, anyway, is maybe if you have an asset that is so large that nanite can draw fewer triangles further away while you're like standing on top of like a huge like. If we assume like you have a huge boulder like this, right? But instead of it being this side, it's the side of this entire fucking room. So all that you would actually see while standing on it would be like this big. Then it might be impossible to like work with LODs because you're always close to the asset, essentially. Because you're literally like right on top of it. But like the things here in the distance don't need millions of polygons. That's like insane to do. So the things close to you might benefit from having a million polygons in a close area, but the things further away can be like scrubbed down. LODs simply cannot do that. LODs swap in the entire asset. So in that like very specific use case, nanite might actually perform better, but for the most part, nanite is a thing that makes things look better, not necessarily perform better. Like it's in most cases, it's something that will prevent your LODs from like popping, which is something that you see in effectively every game ever. So when you get closer to something, it suddenly jumps to higher resolution at the cost of some performance. But if you have just like a bunch of set dressing and like art assets, if you're worried about performance, making LODs is going to perform better. Like I'm pretty confident to say effectively always it's going to perform better, unless again you're talking about like huge assets in like your level geometry. But even if you have like 100 different assets at 200k tries, if those are different assets, you're probably only going to be close enough to like one or two of them for them to render as like their LOD 0 level, and the rest is all going to render in like a much lower fidelity, assuming that you like generate, or if you really want to like maintain higher quality, hand make those lower poly LODs. Because if you have like a huge cathedral, sure, you might be like standing close to a couple of benches that are high resolution, but like the stained glass window in the distance is going to be a lower LOD. So the like base asset might be still 200k polys. But those aren't both going to be at 200k at the same time if you're using LODs. Nanite does take all of that headache away from you, though. So if your game runs well enough with nanite, and you don't have to think about this kind of thing, that itself also is a value to consider. Like, you have effectively you have three kinds of costs in like any development sense. Is what I always come back to. Is you have computing cost, you have memory cost, and you have your own sanity. And you need to balance all three of those. And your own sanity definitely like is one of the factors to consider. If something is slightly more like computing or memory heavy, but it saves you a bunch of headaches, it's probably worth it. If something is slightly more convenient but has a huge computing or a huge memory cost, probably not worth it. But it's definitely like I resent the sentiment that the actual computing cost is the only thing that matters. The actual like end result, because especially if you're like a solo or a small team kind of developer, your time and sanity also are like valuable resources. Now let's test out if this is actually like a jump puzzle that's makeable, because I've been putting these things down for the last. Well, I haven't been doing anything for the past 20 minutes, but before that, for the past hour or so, and I have no idea whether or not this is actually like makeable yet. So let's put that to the test. I mean, fair enough if you're doing game development or like any sort of like software development, your sanity has left the building or this universe entirely, so there's no damage to be done. Then again, if you don't have any sanities left, there's definitely also an argument to be made that you should be getting your sanity back and not giving yourself too much of a headache. It's a bit of a matter of perspective, right? Okay, so we can kind of like move our way through here. First jump, not makeable. We can kind of cheese it for now to see if the rest is makeable. Because if I do this, yeah, there we go. Yeah, so this would definitely require some better collision. But aside from that, like all of these are makeable without like too much stress. Then we come through here, which I like this one. This also needs something more to it, because this at this point is just a pipe that doesn't go anywhere, doesn't come from anywhere. So it probably would be a pipe that like bends off into that direction or something like that. Or maybe, ooh, that's a good idea. So what we could do is we could make this pipe, what the fuck? We could make this pipe bend away into this direction and then down, which effectively would make it a wall, preventing you from like going through here, right? And then if we put a couple of other pipes on a slightly lower level, you would still need to make these jumps, but they would be less scary jumps to begin with, so that's probably good. And that would then effectively make this entire thing a wall as well, meaning that you do have like a little bit less open space. You're only like seeing a portion of the level at any given time. And it would make it so that this is actually like coming from somewhere and going somewhere, and then we can just make some. Everything that's red is going to be themed after a fuck. A lot after a fuck, because I'm not making a porn game. Yeah, the collision for these actually does need to be better. But again, blockouts. What are you gonna do? It's kind of themed. It's going to be themed once this art in place, I should say. After a like in-universe church. So the idea is that there's entire like civilization. Well, you can make that jump. This entire civilization here exists underground. How am I gonna make this happen? I guess we'll see. But everything is like effectively makeable. This first one probably could do with just being a little bit lower down, like that. That's probably fine. So the entire civilization like exists underground, right? And like the religion of these people is that if there is like rock all around them, there's gotta be somewhere to go. And I've actually considered that a civilization that exists entirely underground probably wouldn't have a concept of the up direction being the direction to escape. Um, so there's a little bit of a like logical flaw within that, within my world building, I would say. But this entire like religion is obsessed with like going up, digging up, trying to like get to the surface. Maybe there's this entire civilization exists underground as like a remnant of like a post-apocalyptic thing or whatever. Don't think too much about it. But this entire dungeon is themed around the church of this religion and like culminates with this like platforming level that we will have over here where you like platform up the mine shaft that they've been digging. So that's why it is called the church, because it's the church, which is next to the cemetery, mausoleum, whatever. I don't really know the crypt. And on the other side, it's next to the. I don't remember. I wrote a map about this at some point in the past, and fucking, we'll get back to that at some point. But for now, the red themed dungeon is entirely like based on this world's religion. So how do we get from there now to there? I guess what we could do as well is maybe make this go up a little like this with very small increments, because again, the character doesn't have that much jumping capability. So you can get on top of this. So yeah, I probably have something. But that still doesn't quite work, does it? Let's think this through. I guess we can make all of this shorter and just kind of have going that way. Well, no, actually I have a better idea. So what we can do is this can just line up to that. And all of these, which I probably should just like group into one object, because it's going to be annoying to move these all. And select these individually every single time. Yeah, maybe temple would be better than a church. Church is like fairly specifically like a Christian thing. That's actually a pretty good point. Oh, this is not great, because now all these are mismatched. We'll manage. And this might actually kind of work, because I don't know if this is true, but it feels like the bend of a pipe would be like a weak point, so the fact that that would have like a rupture in it actually kind of makes sense. Yeah, the positioning of all these is fucked, but we'll worry about that in a moment. And then maybe we can even make this one, like all of these, go down one more. Or like 100 units more, that is. We'll have to fine tune it at some point, but that connects these up fairly well. And then I guess to make this make like physical sense within the world, I'm still thinking about the whole church thing. I might like not even go with a name like Temple. Might end up being like the Diggory or something like that. To like make a bit more sense. For now, for gameplay reasons, I think I'm just gonna pull this one back a little bit and put a platform in between. So just like put a box there, just so that people have something to like stand on, and then once it's actually like a usable static mesh, will be better. But for now, this will do. And it doesn't even need to be that big. Just needs to like connect up these two pipes, and that's effectively everything it needs to do. Yeah, so you can't make this jump like this. So what you actually end up doing, which again, will like put a thing at the thingy, doing the thingy. Like put a pipe kind of down here as well. We can just make the radius of this bigger. And that kind of will block you away. Maybe. It's not really fully blocking you, to be fair. That is not really, yeah, that doesn't really actually make a whole lot of sense now I think about it. Maybe this needs to also just be bigger. Now I actually kind of like the size that was. We'll make it 600 now. That's fine. Just so that's easy to like, replicate into other things. So we might need some other stuff to put in here as well, but we can just like put some rocks in and call it a day. But that can like connect up to there and serve as like a bit of a block off. So you need to like move through here and then through here and then like up there maybe. Where it might actually make sense to do this the other way around. So yeah, we can, yeah, this actually works out fairly well. So we can just take these, turn those around. And the fact that these are the most, oh, that's almost right. The fact that these are the most like sticking out means that you can get on them easily, and then like these can progressively get more like this, which makes this actually a jump. So you jump from here probably into there, maybe. We'll see. Maybe move them a little bit closer than they were a moment ago, but there's all the rest. Okay. Are these all in line still? Not quite, but we'll fine tune them. That's fine. YouTube is having connection issues again, because why not? You know, that's actually just kind of fine. Yeah, that's pretty good. Only question is if it is obvious enough that you can like make your way up through all this, but I'm guessing that's probably good. So then you make your way through here, over these, which actually I was gonna like do a thing. So the idea was that we can like do this, copy them over. When YouTube stops being a bitch, actually receiving my data again, you guys can actually see what I'm doing. And I'll like move these down a bit, right? So now this is functionally a wall. Yeah, sometimes people I don't know if that was cut off, so I'll just say it again. I'm on like a shared network with a couple of other people because like this building has like one Wi-Fi router with like a couple of range extenders, which is not great. But it also means that at nighttime, when everybody is like home, people that want to like watch Netflix, there's also like bandwidth bottlenecks, which is really annoying. But there's not much I can do about that aside from like forbidding other people in the building to watch Netflix when they come home, which is just obviously not a thing. Um, yes, I'm thinking I can just like kind of keep this up, and I don't even need that like big wall. I'm still going to keep it because I kind of like the way it looks. Um, well, this will also help direct the player a little bit, I think. Maybe, maybe not. It'll look neat though, right? I think it'll look kind of cool. So then you get to this place where you do have a bit of an open area. But we can just put some decorative pipes in this area as well. Like, there's nothing to stop us from saying, hey, like, take this concept, copy some of those over. I was afraid that I hadn't changed to the proper streaming level for a moment, and that everything I just placed down was on the persistent level, and I was going to have to move it all over, which isn't that big a deal, but also like not a big deal, to the proper streaming level. But we're good. So yeah, just for like, oh, I didn't actually copy over the downward pipes, but that's fine. Like we can do something like this, just so that it feels a little bit more like there's like stuff going on in the empty areas as well. No, this is just a testing texture that the blockout plugin throws on top of everything. It's not going to like look like this. The way it's going to look like is going to be more like in line with this, but probably like slightly different. But like this is kind of these are all marketplace assets. Some of which I will keep, some of which I will replace. But this is kind of the general like vibe that I'm going for. Some kind of like dark, gothish, like underground stuff. And I'm just color coding the dungeons based on color. So like everything here, purple is one dungeon, and calling them dungeons isn't like really correct because everything connects up to each other anyway. But the thing that I'm working on right now is the red dungeon, like there. And that's why this texture is nice because it's dynamic in the color that you can give it. Quite a nice material. Could even put like an item in here if I wanted to. But I do think I want to put in like an enemy here. Like a couple of enemies here in the center kind of like rounds out this room, I would say. And the wonderful thing about this area actually is that if you come back through, because it's a platforming thing, you can just jump down and be on your way. I really like the idea of megalites. I personally am going to like not be using them because they require lumen to function, of course. And I got rid of lumen for a couple of different reasons. One is performance, the other one is the game is cel shaded anyway, so lumen is just going to introduce noise to all that. Also, some raidbot just entered my thing, so we're going to go, hey, hello. Bye. Is there a way to like automatically delete every message that a fucker send in the Discord? I already kicked him, so definitely not right now. Well, hopefully one of the other mods catches this. We'll see. We have a stream schedule. Yeah, so this time, whichever time zone that is. So I've been streaming for an hour and a half now, so you can reverse engineer when I started. And usually I stream to like another hour from now on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So on the topic of megalites, because they're all dynamic, they require lumen to really like work properly. And I think they specifically might even require hardware ray tracing to work properly, which is also like 5 years from now, 10 years from now, probably not going to be an issue. If you're developing something that's going to be releasing in the next couple of years, it's a little iffy because most people might not have that, and you're going to have like an Indiana Jones kind of deal where people, like even for a big AAA game, are having issues with the hardware ray tracing requirement. If you can do that as an indie, it's definitely not going to help. I also find that it increases the noisiness of the lighting quite a lot, and that because it is like virtual, like streamed in lighting, much like the way Nanite works, when a light source is off screen, the effect of its lights can also disappear from your scene. Which means that as you're like panning around with your camera like this, if we have a light source that's like right here, for instance, at like the intersection of these two pipes, that light source would be casting light all the way out here. But the moment I do this, it tends to disappear, which is not great. So like seeing a lot of lights on screen at once is cool. And to be fair, the more lights you have in your scene, the less it's going to be obvious when one of them just like blips out. But that was also a reason where I was like, I don't want that. Clear username. Is that on Discord or is that in like? Oh, mods are already taking care of it. Thanks. So yeah, that's Megalites in a nutshell. Is I much like Nanite, I like the technology. I like the technology from Nanite, I think, a little bit more because it is a little like less rough around the edges still. But it has a way to go. Let's play down a couple of enemies, shall we? Just a few ghosts. I need to start like placing down more enemies, and I really need to like get back around to maybe after we finish the level design for this dungeon, I will make it a priority to like rework. Maybe I'll do it off screen. I don't know. Rework the enemy AI, because right now the enemy AI all works independently from each other, and what I want is them to kind of have like a hive mind, where they get told whether or not they are like aggressive or not, and there's only like 3, 4, or 5 enemies at a time that are actually aggressive to you. But that's going to require like quite a lot of code to actually get working. But once I can do that, I can actually make it so that you have a bunch of enemies in an area without them all just like jumping you and stun locking you effectively. You know what the worst part is about Discord spam? Is that it's also fucking up all my notifications on which channels I have checked. So I need to go through every single channel to see if there's any other messages that I have missed. And usually there isn't, but I don't want to just like mark all as red and effectively like miss out on potential like questions or things that people have. So yeah, anyway, I want to be able to have more enemies on screen, because right now every time I have a fight it's like 4 enemies, and anything more than that becomes overwhelming like fairly quickly. Let's all throw a spider in, why not? Matter of fact, let's actually make the spider go a little bit more back, so he's a bit more protected. I think that works best for its like behavior. And you'll see in a moment why, because if I like put this enemy activator in here and I just make it nice and big, so that when you enter this general area, it activates everything. You will see that I get overwhelmed with the amount of aggression from these enemies super quick. I also need to add a nav mesh, otherwise this is not going to work. I just realized. Yucky, spider legs. The amount of spider videos that I watched trying to figure out how to animate this dude's legs while walking is not fun. Wasn't a good time. Like straight up. Did teach me the fact that spider like walking is super fucking weird, because they walk with 2 legs at a time diagonally from each other. Which is probably why they look so creepy, because that is fucking wacky. So the way they walk, right, is when they walk forward, they walk with like this leg and this leg at the same time, and then this one and this one at the same time, and then this one and this one at the same time, and actually, something like that anyway. I don't think I think it might be this one and this one, and then that one and that one, and that one and that one, and that one and that one. But like 2 legs are paired at a time to walk forward on a diagonal. Which I guess they have to walk somehow. And they're not going to walk with like all legs on this side first and then all legs on that side like humans just with extra legs. But it's still creepy to look at. Not a lot of fun. There are bots to do that for you. Some remove those spammers without too much issue. Yeah, I probably should look into like more anti-spam bots. The way they walk freaks me out. Yeah. aside from the fact that they have 8 legs to begin with and 8 eyes, the way they just skitter around is not great. I don't like spiders. I like murdering spiders. Well, I'm actually like one of those people who, in real life, when I get a spider in my room, I do like put them in like a little container and I put them outside. I don't actually kill them because I'm just like trying to chill, right? They haven't done anything wrong. The only things that I murder are mice, because if you don't, they just keep coming back, and they will actually like just straight up eat your food. And the moment a mouse like touches your food, you pretty much have to like throw out whatever they touch, because there's a pretty good chance that that entire package is now like contaminated with like some sort of horrible disease. So yeah, no, I do have mouse traps around the house. I used to have non-lethal ones. That didn't solve the issue. Then I changed to lethal ones, and apparently they fucking got the memo, because they did actually start showing up a lot less. So they're smart little fellas. So yeah, we needed a nav match. And they realize when their family is being murdered, apparently, which is good, because that means that they fuck off. But like, aside from that, if they're not like actively a danger to me, I don't really like feel or food to me. Like I'm not going to go like full vegetarian just because like animal lives are lives too, which I mean that's fair, but it's like I don't care. As long as they're not like dying to either feed me or protect me, I don't really feel the need to like kill everything that unnerves me as well. Feels a little like serial killer behavior. So I don't kill spiders, is kind of what I'm trying to say. Isn't Nightbot free? I think it is. Maybe. You aren't a menace to the ecosystem, is what I'm hearing. Well, I don't have a cat, so yeah, that's true. I would like to have a cat, but like where I live, it's just like too small, man. I can't have a cat in here. Like I have a few friends that have cats, and it's always fun to hang out with cats. Which might be like a pretty out of the left field answer, but like if you're talking about like eco-terrorism, like having a cat and letting it outside is actually like very effective eco-terrorism. Because that's those fuckers will kill anything. They're effectively an invasive species anywhere that people have cats as pets. Jesus Christ, what's going on with my frame rate, man? Is it because it's the CPU thing, right? It's because there's so many enemies there. Is it? It goes in spikes as well. That's kind of weird. What's that FPS? What is the thing that I'm looking for again? Do I have like... Is that CPU? I don't remember what the thing is. Let me Google that real quick. Unreal stats, performance. It's a video. I just want to know what the thing is called. Anybody in chat now? Oh, there we go. Stats, detailed. So it's just, I guess what I can do is I can just go in there and show. No. Stats. Engine details. Alright, so what's eating up my FPS? It's draw. GameTech is not amazing, but it's kind of doing fine. It's drawing. Does it become worse when I... It does become worse when I spawn those things in, so it's certainly... certainly not them the entire time. But I'm literally drawing the same... What? Yeah, so when I'm not actually playing, the draw time... Why does it spike? Something in that level is effectively causing like a fuck ton of draw calls, which I guess isn't that big a deal as long as it's not the enemies that are causing this. Why is it using 16 gigabytes of video memory? I guess there's a lot of things that are loaded in, actually. So yeah, as long as it's just me having a bunch of like individual assets here that are technically like individual draw calls, because they are individual meshes, I think. Oh, but they're the same mesh just getting stretched, so this doesn't make a lot of sense. Are all object instances? Yeah, I mean, they are. But as far as draw calls go, you can have like multiple instances as long as it's the same mesh and material combination. They should be grouped into one draw call, from what I understand. Because that's effectively like what instancing a mesh does, right? So if you have like mesh instance components, they like do that for you. But I'm pretty sure if you just have the same mesh with the same material twice in a level, that also should be grouped together as a draw call. Can I see how many draw calls I have? Draws. 1,200! Well, that's with everything loaded. Hold on. So, yeah, the draws in this area are like 250, 260. Then this is the wrong area. But even in here, they're only in like the 250 range. In here, they're in the 260 range. When I dash, it becomes a little bit more because, of course, the particles and stuff. In here, it's 260 again. When I go into this next room, is it going to be like 2,000? Or something weird like... It does... No! Yes! It goes up to like 1,000 draw calls suddenly. What the fuck? Oh, I know. Part of the issue is these fuckers, because these, I am fairly certain, every single one of these is its own. Look in here somewhere. Every single one of these is its own component with its own. Yeah, so because this is a spline mesh component, I'm guessing every single one of those is an individual draw call. So until I bake these down, every one of these segments, I think, is one draw call. Which means that this hallway here is probably what's killing my FPS. Because I cannot imagine that it's... Well, it's probably also these things back here, I guess. Let's just remove these enemies real quick. Yeah, I know that it's gonna like delete them out of the activator. Just to see if this does fix it. Because we didn't have this issue before when we did have the hallway. So logically it cannot actually be that only. That might be a contributing I can't talk factor, but even then, with the amount of segments we have there, it's like 80, maybe 100 extra draw calls. That's not like 800 extra calls. It doesn't make sense. More like Hellway. Yeah. But anyway, like either way, when the proper like meshes are in place there, all that stuff needs to be baked down anyway. So that'll help. But there's no way that... Yeah, so even now, it like spikes up to like 2,000 at times. Can I... Is there anything that like... Optimization via modes. Stationary light overlap, no. Shader complexity. None of these really seem like... I wish I could just like figure out... I don't think Claude Overdraw is gonna... Yeah, like none of this is particularly like egregious. Because none of this has like shaders like overdraw, because none of this has like transparency. Shader complexity. I mean, to be fair, this is all in the green, which is good. For some reason, these are all red, which is weird because it's the exact same shader, but sure. I have to wonder... I heard that Unreal 5 has poor optimization. No, that's... Unreal 5 has poor optimization in the same way that Unity makes bad games. They both have a reputation for that for a reason, but it's also bullshit. Unity has a reputation for making bad games because a lot of bad games that are made with Unity have the Unity logo in front of it. Because those are like people that don't pay a license for the engine. I think it's different now. I think you can get rid of the logo either way, but like until fairly recently, having the logo in front of your game when you start up with Unity means that you just like have an unpaid license effectively, or like the cheapest license. And those tend to be the worst games, so that creates this perception that Unity makes bad games, while a lot of good games run on Unity. The same way, Unreal Engine can be a pretty demanding engine, and if you don't know what you're doing, that can mean that the games that you make with it end up fairly badly optimized. Because it has a lot of this like high-end tech that people might abuse, and a bunch of like big AAA studios that only care about making the bare fucking minimum experience possible. that stuff gets skimmed on. Doesn't mean that the engine is badly optimized. It means that people using the engine are bad at optimizing. And that then becomes very quickly under like gamers, Unreal Engine's games are unoptimized, which is bullshit because so many more games than you really run Unreal Engine that run fine. Not a lot of games that are out right now run on Unreal 5. A lot of the games still being released still run on Unreal 4, to be fair. Um, but it's also a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Where if a game runs badly and people look up the engine and that's Unreal, they're like, yeah, Unreal Engine runs badly. But they don't look up the engine for every game that they play that runs smoothly. So there's like a certain negativity bias that's like self-perpetuating there as well. Along with a lot of very loud, very annoying Unity fanboys that keep like just spouting shit into the world, which gets mindlessly repeated. Um, all that said, let's try to figure out what is causing my draw calls to go through the roof. Like the fact that I even have this many like visualizations for optimization should tell you enough. Like these tools are here to use. Um, that said, reverse engineering what is causing draw calls seems to be a bit difficult. Is there a way to find it out? How do I see draw call statistics? I want to see like where my draw calls are most heavy. Um, like in all these, like everything here is to do with showing you optimization data. Like data point by data point telling you how much like of your rendering time, your frame time is going into every single one of these individual things, right? So if you don't bother diving into this when you figure out, hey, this scene, this level is fucking me, um, that's up to the developer. I also need to like find like GPU stuff. Stats screen rendering is what I need. That doesn't seem to exist. Okay, fantastic. 8,000 draw calls is nothing. A million should be fine for a normal game scene. I mean, I definitely seem to be having some issues with like my drawing. It might just be the shader complexity because that's what we're checking right now, and we do have some like pretty bad complexity here. So let's just. It's still weird that it has like 1,000 draw calls in this area, but let's see what happens if we like cancel out of the game and like let's go back from shader complexity to lit mode, please. I don't know why this would particularly. Is it? Don't tell me it's because it was shown in nav match complexity, right? It is. So the shader complexity for this is really low. It's a little higher for the sides because I guess it uses like the cores, maybe. It's also higher for this area for some reason. It doesn't make sense. Same fucking shader. Go back to lit mode. And then let's restart the engine. Was it engine? Was it advanced? I always forget that. FPS raw wasn't here, right? Wasn't it detailed? Oh yeah. Oh, is it just part of FPS? There we go. So a frame takes about 45 milliseconds to render, about half of which is game. But the thing that's actually like making this fucked is the draw phase, which is a GPU thing. So GPU. Lumen reflections. I think the fuck not, man. It's also only 1 millisecond. The actual issue comes in with unaccounted. So that doesn't help me. Is it because it's just like doing some real-time lighting because I haven't built the lighting yet for these new objects? That's probably it, right? I have to imagine that's it. Let's just assume that that's it for now. Because I don't really want to look into this, to be honest with you. Long story short, the enemies that I just deleted there, which there they are not the issue. To be fair, I think these objects might all be movable objects. Maybe. Add block out. No, they add them as static. So, like, at least there's that. But there's a lot of static things there. But they don't have any lighting applied to them, so that actually shouldn't be. I don't know. I don't know where to start with my project. That's a good one, man. Really, really depends on what you want to make. Like, figure out what game you want to make and what is like the most important aspect of that game. If you're making a platformer, start by making like your character movement feel good. If you're making like a Sims game, start by making an NPC that like autonomously goes about their day and like interact with objects, and that's a pretty big task, so you need to break that down again, of course. But there's like no great single starting point aside from writing down like the ideas for your game or like how you're going to like make that happen. Not on a technical level, but on like a creative level. So yeah, ignoring the frame rate issue, which I do also have Affinity Photo still open, so that might not be helping. Yeah, I didn't think that was going to be a big issue. I don't know, man. That does add a couple of frames. I don't know if this is gonna fuck the stream, but let's just like build some. I should have saved some things before doing that. Is that going to like make the stream frame rate freeze up or anything? I don't think so. I have like way too many CPU cores for Unreal to use them all properly. Although I suppose this is a GPU thing, but still. Seems to be handling it quite fine. But it is building the lighting for this entire thing, so it might take a moment. Well, it's already at about 10%, so not that much. I think what might be happening, actually, now that I think about it, is that specifically these objects are not like great for performance because they, I think, effectively like deform these things around the spline, right? So we set up a spline for the circle, and then we deform it along that spline. And that probably add block out tube, add spline mesh components. It's probably just one mesh that it does, right? It doesn't do an individual mesh for each one, which would make sense why I have so many draw calls if that's the case. Yeah. Does that that doesn't improve shit. Okay, didn't think it would, but still disappointing. So yeah, I think that the issue here might just be the fact that I'm using so many tubes. Which is really unnecessary as well. But that would fix itself when I just put static meshes in here instead. So maybe let's just make a static mesh to do that with. I don't know. I really kind of don't want to go through and replace every single one of these with, instead of a tube, where is it? A cylinder. All of these also have 32 segments, which is a lot. What's the radius of these things? 133. So let's say 100. And, well, 100. Well, that's actually pretty good. 131. Almost the same. So then, I just take this transform. Put you there instead. And then do this like a bunch of times. I just want to see if this makes a difference. At this point, I'm just too curious to let this go. This is not a productive use of anybody's time. But you guys are stuck here with me. Well, you're not. You can literally just like click off. But I'm going to pretend like you cannot. And I would very much appreciate it if you did too. Let's make this 1,000 for all of them. So it's big enough. None of these need to be tubes. Only the things that you're walking inside actually need to be tubes, right? So... And I do feel like deleting all those tubes is boosting my frame rate a little bit, but that might just be wishful thinking. Because it also doesn't make sense that that would impact the draw time for these, unless they have like a weird like setup going for their like well, no, because if it does add a bunch of like individual, but it doesn't look like it does, right? I don't think it adds individual meshes for each segment, because you'd be able to see that surely. I don't think it does. No, it does. Oh, that's, oh, it definitely does, because it does a for loop and adds a mesh component. Okay, so that is the issue then. It is these things. Because each one of these segments is a mesh itself, seemingly. Which then has a draw call to itself. So these things are terrible for your draw calls. Like if I go in now and I show like stats, engine, wasn't here somewhere, draw count? No, but that is not. Oh, detailed. We're down to like 1,000 draw calls now. So let's keep that up and see if it actually goes down as we delete the rest of these as well. Let's have those snap to 45-degree increments. Can make them longer as we go. Because we have a lot of these tubes. And it would kind of make sense if like adding those is the thing that fucked me. I think as I'm deleting these, it is without a doubt, right? Because if I look this way, we go up to like 3,000. Looking this way again, away from the tubes, we're at 600. The fact that one Unreal forum user said like 8,000 draw calls, that's nothing. Might still be true. Might be a combination of like the shader also being horrible, which it could be. I didn't make it. To be fair, if I made it, it probably would be worse. But yeah, this does seem a lot better. So let's make all of these heights like 2,500 so that they're all at least long enough. A lot of them are too long, but that actually doesn't matter. And then for these, we can actually just like take this one, and I'm going to group these together, which I can do with Control G. And now I can select and rotate them as one object, which is going to save me a whole bunch of shit. Might not align properly anymore, though. Well enough. Okay, yeah, I think we're kind of fixing this, because remember, all that like overdraw stuff, it was a GPU bottleneck. That's happening on my 4090. So on like a reasonable GPU, that probably would have just melted, right? So that's definitely, what the fuck? That's definitely something to be slightly wary of. I don't know why it keeps doing that, but I'm not a fan. I guess we don't use like alt, we just copy. Oh, that's why it keeps doing that. I don't like that. Can I click over it and it does? No. Okay, that is not good. Can I have it not do that, please? I would enjoy not doing that. I guess we ungroup this. Never mind. Doesn't really work that well. We'll just do it this way. Fine. This works well enough anyway. Well, all of them need to be a little longer. But that can be arranged. There we go. And then I guess we can just kind of copy this over and move it over to that other place. And for this one, I'm going to group them together again. Copy, and just kind of hope that I can get them into place properly. Yeah, so keep on deleting stuff. Yeah, we're definitely like going down in draw calls now, again. Because we were at about 2,000 when I started deleting these, and we're down to about 1,000 now. So yeah, these tubes are just murdering my frame rate, which is good to know. Don't use those too much. Even just for blockouts, because people need to be able to like playtest this shit. Should be about like this height, I think, right? Roughly. Yeah, something like that. Oh, anytime I... You know, let's just ungroup them. And then we can just copy them over like 2 at a time again. Because that worked fairly well last time. It's not the most ideal way to do this, I'm aware, but at this point, any way that works for me doing this is better than a way that doesn't work. So just leave me alone, okay? Probably could have just selected these two and made them 2,500 as well, but we're back up to 60 FPS now instead of like 20 by just replacing those. So that proves my theory. Are you going to release the game when it's done sometime next century? The answer is yes, I'm going to release the game. But the answer is also it's a while away. I do have a Steam page for it, like down below in the description of every video on the channel, as well as this live stream, I think, maybe, possibly, hopefully. Otherwise, I need to change my default setup. So yeah, I'm going to release it. It has a Steam page. You can wishlist it. But it's going to be a while. That seems about right. And I guess this one might as well be a cylinder too. The radius of this was 600. So something like that. And then they probably be better off this, and then the heights there, good enough. All right, so that's cleaned up quite a bit. It still has about, like, if I have the entire thing on screen at once, still doesn't make a lot of sense to me that it was having issues when they weren't on screen, but it's still about like 1,000 draws. But that's better than like 3,000, and it's definitely increasing my FPS. So probably a variety of factors with those tubes, aside from only the draw call that was causing a mess. Have you got anything to do, anything legally before releasing a game? No. Not really. You need to make, well, you don't need to make a Steam page, but if you're planning to sell it, you're going to want to be on Steam. So you need to make a Steam page, for which you do need to like have, you need to pay like a deposit of like 100 USD, I believe it was. And you do need to fill out some like tax related forms for like income and that kind of stuff. Same as you do on any platform where you like expect to get money from. Essentially, like if you have like a Fiverr account, or like that you're using as a seller, or like a Patreon account even, that kind of stuff. Again, if you're using it as a creator, yeah, all this works perfectly fine. Like those kind of tax forms you need to fill out, because of course you're gonna be getting money through there. But aside from that, there's nothing that you like need to do that I'm aware of anyway. I also should check out what those spikes are, because you can see that sometimes I have those like spikes, and this is kind of the issue that I was talking about, by the way. There's way too many enemies that are aggro on me, which makes it kind of hard to hit literally any of them. But yeah, can I like, if I just, for some reason this has turned into an optimization stream, I don't know why. If we just like start playing this, and then I guess I can just go in here. It only really happens in combat. Well, it also happens on level load, but that makes sense, right? Because you're loading stuff. So if I go into here for like a little bit of like combat fun, we should start seeing one of those spikes eventually, presumably. Also, let's use the controller for this. I get it loaded in the weapon there for a moment, which we saw in the spike. So maybe it is the first time certain attacks are done. It needs to load in the assets that go with it, but it does that on the game format, maybe? That's my theory right now. Which would make sense, because I think it did do that when he did like the shield attack. It isn't already an attack because it's a defensive move, but hey. It does for like 1 frame there. And it only does it like the 1 time, and then after, yeah, so it's probably just like loading in that animation asset, which doesn't make sense because that should be hard referenced anyway. It should be loaded in with the level, much less with the ability. Unless the ability itself isn't a hard reference. No, it should be. Hey, can you not heal my enemies, please? Can you just go ahead and die? That would be ideal. Thank you very much. I also am just not using my lock-on ability, am I? I programmed this shit for a reason. Come on. There we go. Oh, I also need to... Well, this is weird. Oh... It spawns in a light that doesn't move with the thing because the thing, yeah, I can fix that. I also need to heal. Give me a moment, guys. I'll be be right back to fight you. I have a healing point here. Oh. There we go. Thank you very much. So yeah, I also need to make it so that if you're locked onto something and it dies, it doesn't just remove your lock on. It tries to find a new target instead. Because it's really annoying when you're locked onto something and you kill it, and then you don't like immediately have your next target. You see, those didn't cause any like loading spikes on first attack, so it's definitely not just that. And there we had a spike again. None of these spikes are noticeable because they're only like the 50 millisecond range. We had like much bigger spikes than that. But they still might be educational to look at. Because these kind of issues I have been having for a while. And looking at frame time breakdowns is always fun. Okay, so it didn't have any like big... There's a couple issues there. Didn't have any like big stuff, but we can... Can we like look at the traces? Okay, so which one is that? That would be 25. This one? I forget how you look at those. It's like a little Unreal look back at trace. I need to look this stuff up so that I can make videos on them so that I can watch my own videos back. Also because it's just good stuff to have more information on, right? Trace quick start, that's all I need to know for now. Unreal Insights. Can I not open it from here as well? I think I can. Also interesting. Resource usage, no. Struct viewer. Ah. That's actually neat. Didn't know that was a thing. Gameplay queue added to a localization dashboard. Debug profile. Profile data. Visualizer. Load. Thought this is what I was looking for. Let's just run a quick one that doesn't have like any proper testing in it, just to see if the information shows up. So we do that, we do some stuff. Oh look, it's so intensive. Okay, that's enough. Yeah, that's not it. Do I really need to like launch it from Explorer? Unreal? No, no, you don't. Am I really this thick? Run Unreal Insights. Yeah, I don't think that's there. Unreal, maybe update your website. Because that ain't there. Hmm. Nope. Oh, that's in build. That's the wrong submenu anyway. Yeah, it doesn't have... Let me try finding the install path where they claim it should be located. They should really be launchable from in the editor. I don't know why it's not, because they even claim that it should be. But I assume that it's in my engine install location. So that would be in my game development maybe, or in games. For some reason I installed Unreal Engine in my games folder instead of in my game development folder, because I'm an idiot. So it's an engine, binaries, Windows 64, and there it should have like Unreal. It's a bunch of files. I'm not seeing anything called Unreal Insight, so this might be one of those things that they deprecated and then didn't bother updating the documentation for, which they do with annoying regularity. Yeah, so that doesn't seem correct. So this is just bullshit. Just not usable anymore, like all this. But this is an Unreal 5.3, so this is recent. Did they move it to here maybe? That would actually make sense. Hold on. I found the folder where it's located. Yep, this is not the thing that I'm looking for. How do we view traces? Profiling directory, maybe? Open insights after trace. I mean, I guess that works. That's one way to open it. Can I change the trace that I'm looking at though? I think I can. So I can just copy this like file name and put it in there. No, I can't change anything about this path. Okay. Not ideal, but at least I guess we can just like start a new trace and play that bit again. Let's do it in the other region so that just we have a little bit of stuff. A little bit of difference between the two, which is bad for actually like testing stuff. But the other regions seem to have like more spikes. So we know that that first spike is a level load. This next upcoming spike is also going to be a level load. And it does have like spikes up to like 60. It's not actually loading, because technically like the loading is done asynchronously, but it's like when it's done loading it shows and everything becomes visible, like actualized in the world. And I think that is the thing that is taking up like 60 millisecond frame times. For the most part, this seems good. I also, is it using 21 gigs of VRAM? Is it, or is that the amount of VRAM that's still open? Because I cannot believe that what I'm doing right now is using 21 gigs of VRAM. Like, that's just bullshit, right? Like that truly includes the editor, which has everything fucking like loaded, because it is a horrible piece of shit. So I like those frame spikes, like those lag spikes must be to do with asset loading, because they don't happen anymore now. Well, it did happen there once, and I did die. And I did crash the engine. So like that's a thing. Well, I guess this restarts the engine, so it unloads everything that was loaded. So that's actually good, in a way. Because those spikes happen more in like standalone builds, I think, which would be explained by it being asset loading. And they seem to happen less as my like editor session goes on, which also would be explained by the assets being loaded in and just being accessible in memory from within the editor. So theoretically, I also should start it like recording here, and then I also should go back here and like show stats, engine details. And we had another thing here as well at some point. Oh, well. Oh, there we go. The little graph is actually quite nice. Well, that's when the levels aren't loaded in the editor, it also doesn't load them in like at playtime. I don't know why. It seems like an engine bug, but sure. Yeah, so the V memory is down to like 11 gigs now. So surely it just had a bunch of stuff loaded in memory still. Which also means that like any profiling here is a little like moot. Okay, let's see. So we had a frame spike there. First time I think I attacked. So that's probably where it like loads in. It has a massive spike there. That's like, yeah, okay, that's the exact type of spike that I was looking for. So let's stop that. And that's the most recent trace, so that would be this one, right? Open that up. There we go. All right. Welcome to Frame Time Breakdowns. It's fun. So I think it was this one. It's like 14,000 milliseconds or something like that. Yeah, 1.4 seconds this frame took. So why? Wait for tasks. Look at that gap here and stuff. Holy shit. Like, yeah, all these background workers ain't doing shit. And even here. Okay, so all of this isn't doing anything. So it's got to be like, it is this. Zooming in on this is a little bit. So, okay. Good for you. We found what is causing the issue. Wait for task. Yeah, so can we like break this down more though? Because this is just world tech. It took a fucking mortal age. give ability and activate once. Okay, so it's the give ability thing. Reset defense. Aha. So check these other ones as well, just to be sure. Like, are these to do with... Yeah, these aren't to do with the same thing. And this one was just me clicking off, right? Maybe not? No, I think it was. Yeah, so the issue seems to be F-time manager, 1.5 seconds. What it seems like to me, and this would be insane, no, it must be just this, because I mean, okay, let's see if Google has an answer to this. Unreal give ability and activate once frame lag spike. Nobody's complaining about lag spikes to do with them. So let's look at reset defense. Does that have anything like weird in it? Wait, reset defense isn't even an ability. Is it? We have a behavior tree tiles, but that doesn't actually like do that. We have reset enemy defense, which is a gameplay effect. So, but then what does it? Then what is this? Because this says a reset defense is the function on the enemy. So we can actually look at it here. Well, we'll get there. Reset. So the blueprint function? Just trying to figure this out. Yeah, reset defense. So we have, all that does is apply gameplay effect to self and give ability and activate once the revenge ability. All right. Could it be because one of these doesn't have a revenge ability? So we just do like is valid? It might be trying to do stuff with an ability that doesn't exist. Right, so if it's trying to do stuff with an ability that doesn't exist, that might be causing some issues. So maybe checking the validity of the class first is what we need to do. This has nothing to do with level design anymore. It still doesn't make a whole lot of sense with the patterns that I've been behaving, that I've been like seeing, but at this point I don't know what would be the issue with something that would take like a second and a half. And that's a second and a half on this machine. Like when those spikes happen on my testing in Steam Deck, in my testing on Steam Deck, rather, they take like multiple seconds where it gets stuck on a frame. So when you reset defense, yeah, that does it seamlessly. Isn't this the fun part of game development? Just blindly trying to like figure stuff out and hoping that you just stumble across the answer to the issue. When it's my own code, at least I can like test the code. When it's to do with like this kind of stuff, it's setting up an ID and trying it out. And if that's not the answer, trying to figure out what is. Because if they don't give me the answer, like no information at all, not much I can do. Okay, so that was a spike that was like pretty big. So I'm gonna need to keep that in mind. So that was a spike of about like 60 milliseconds. It's acceptable, right? 60 milliseconds is, I think, about the 30 FPS range. Is it? No, I think that's actually like 15 FPS. But if it does that for one frame, it's not ideal. But it's also like not mega noticeable. Ideally, you don't have that happen, obviously, but there's only so much you can do. Yeah. It seems to happen more with the spider, and it actually does make sense. I think we might have solved the issue, to be honest, because the spider also doesn't have a revenge ability, so it makes sense that the spider causes that more as well. Okay, it did spike there as well for a moment. So I have to look into that as well. But if the spider like tried to do a revenge ability and it didn't have one, and that is like give ability without a valid class is the thing that like lags you the fuck out. That would explain why the spider seemed to be the cause of that issue. Because obviously that for a long time was the... Okay, that's another one. Well, like, why does it spike to 50 milliseconds? That 50 milliseconds isn't that bad for one frame. Like that's one frame that would be on like a 20 FPS like cadence, which is not good. But also, if it's for one frame, it's not that horrible. But I guess let's take a look at them. I don't care about the errors. I just want to see my most recent like insight. Let it load. Yeah, so there we see 50 milliseconds is about 20 FPS, but it is only like in minuscule spikes for me. So it's not that huge. But we had like, well, these are, yeah, so we had like this one, right? Is one of those spikes where it went to like 50 for a moment. Oh, garbage collection frames. Yeah. Um, I think that might be, no, because garbage collection happens asynchronously, because this is obviously happening like starting halfway through a frame and ending halfway through a different frame, so that's not the issue. The thing that stalled this this frame, wait, this doesn't even make sense for, hold on. It's 100 milliseconds. Well, these ones I should ignore because those are just the ending frames. Oh, okay, game frame. Still, garbage collection shouldn't be the issue here. The issue is just like the engine loop, most likely, right? Uh, yeah, so this is this is a garbage collection thing. Conditional garbage collection. Yeah, this one did take like 30 extra milliseconds, which makes sense because if we compare these, it's about 14 to about 51. So that would be about like 36. And it only does that like once every so often. So those spikes that we see, but those are not the spikes that we're like feeling, right? We didn't notice those necessarily, I don't think. But those spikes every so often up to 50 milliseconds seem to be garbage collection. Can we optimize that in any reasonable way? Throwing away less objects is how you do that. Which means spawning in less individual like particle effects and just using a component that you turn on and off. Like some amount of garbage collection needs to happen because otherwise, congratulations, you have a memory leak, right? Like garbage collection is a good thing. It's just you don't want to constantly be spawning in and then disregarding objects that you could be like pooling effectively. I wish it told me which objects might be causing this. It's probably not even like a specific object. It's probably just the amount of objects, I would imagine. Yeah, slow mark is reachable. But again, I don't think that we really should be like too worried about this, to be like super honest with you. Because this wasn't that bad. Oh, game frame. I also want to check out in the, not the render thread, that doesn't actually like interest me that much. We also had this, yeah, here, wait for task, right? So what is that about? I don't think that's necessarily the issue that we're running into. but I can Google it because I don't actually know what it means. RHI wait for task. Could mean anything, is what Reddit says, which, I mean, oh, hold on, it's waiting for it, like the parent thing. I should look at that, right? No, because that's on the game thread. This is literally the top thing here, so I can't look at this parent thing. Although I don't know. For now, though, I think we might have solved the insane lag spike issue. I will keep playing. I will put it back on my Steam Deck and play through there a couple of times to maybe see if it still pops up there, because that's a way better testing ground. As I said earlier in the stream, the downside to having like an actually powerful PC to make this stuff on is that testing this stuff on that hardware is a bad idea. So that's where Steam Deck comes in. That's actually good testing hardware. Anyway, it's been a bit of a dynamic stream where we went a little all over the place. I meant to do some level design, but we designed a level in my defense, right? There was a level that is now designed somewhere along here, this one. There is gameplay in this level. So by some metrics, you might call that a level that was designed. Let's move this. Oh no, we do actually want to move that back. Never mind, I'm an idiot. And that means that I think next week we will probably get started with this monstrosity, which is going to take like more than one stream most likely, because it's going to be kind of this, but more. So I'm already scared. Thanks everybody for joining in, having a chat, giving some ideas, giving some feedback, all that kind of stuff. I'll be back on Tuesday, same time, same channel. And have a good one.